Yeah, so in my fantasy column that I wrote, I did give myself a little bit of a hard time in the sense that my mind was pretty well spent by the time I made these picks, so didn't factor in really much of anything other than gut instinct. Okay, so um, it's gonna sound pretty chalk here. I'm going Patrick Walters in bucket A, Joey Cifuentes in bucket B, Scott Martin in bucket C, Kyle Welcher in bucket D, and Greg Hackney in bucket E. Ronnie Moore, what does your team look like?
I got a different lineup. I don't think we match up in any of them. I've got Seth Feider bucket A, Bryan Schmitt bucket B, Jordan Lee bucket C, Ray Hanselman bucket D, and Kyle Patrick in bucket E.
I mean, vastly different. I mean, I don't think we could be any further off from our two two teams there.
I tried not to go with a ton of favorites because Okeechobee is just different. I tried not to go with many of the picks that I picked the last time we were here because it is just so different, water level wise. But there's just some styles here. I kind of had a little trend, when, fighter, he's figuring out Florida pretty well, had a good St. John's. He's done that before. Schmidt, he's got different traits to it. Jordan Lee, Hanselman, I'll explain why, and then Kyle Patrick can't get much worse than he had the first event. So, yeah, but tell me, break me down, bucket A. Who was your pick again? Oh, Walters.
Yeah, Patrick Walters in bucket A. My general thought process there was that last year I pretty much rode with Patrick Walters in bucket A every single event,
Rightfully so.
just because it was like yeah, I mean, like what you can't really argue that too much. Solid finish here last time. I just don't think anything like what doesn't set up for Patrick Walters. Like literally, I mean, I just don't. You can't pick a tournament where you're like, well, I'm not picking him there. So Patrick Walters in bucket A. Bucket B is just a kind of a momentum thing for me. Joey Cifuentes, I got to cover him on the water here last time we were here, and he had a good event. I want to say he finished inside the top. I know for
I
for
think
sure
he
he
was,
finished inside the top 20. I'm not
I
sure
think he was
exactly spot
15th
wise.
or something like that. 15th.
Yeah, yeah. So solid finish. He just looked very comfortable. Like he was fishing around the crowd, and it just seemed to not bother him one single bit. And that was the first time I got to cover him as a rookie, of course. But and
And he had
obviously
a
got
good
off to a
St.
great
John's,
start at the
man.
St. John's. Like I
Holy
think that
cow.
Yeah, I think that goes a really long way. Obviously, a great day two, bust him all the way up into the top 10. A little tougher semifinal Saturday. Still a great tournament there. I'm just going the momentum 100% in B. I did find B, to be a little more challenging. Like there were some good picks in bucket B to be had, but there was not like a clear cut favorite. Bucket C, Scott Martin. I'm just thinking like, it's one of those deals.
Well, hold on. I
I'm
gotta go.
either going to go down with the ship or I'm
I gotta go. You skip me. I gotta go through mine. So we go bucket by bucket. With Fighter, bucket
oh,
A, I feel like he's just in a good momentum, a good headspace as well, having fun, going viral in other ways. And I like that. We'll talk about him in TH Marine Pick'em as well. But this is just his style. He does fish well around vegetation, shallow water, mud daubing, that type of deal. That is Fighter's alley. Um, And so I think that he's going to keep it going. Bucket A was the hardest bucket for me to pick, Kyle. I went E up, and I kind of just like, man, I really don't know who I want to go with here. Do I go with a heavy favorite? Do I go with a Walters just because? But I kind of settled in on Fighter there. Bryan Schmitt bucket B. I just trust his shallow water ability, swim jig ability, worming ability. We see it at the Mississippi River, Potomac River, places, hard spots, rivers. But I think Okeechobee translates really well for him as well. Fishing in the crowd, if perspective's a deal, very, very skilled with his electronics as well. I expect Bryan Schmitt to he's a high floor pick for me. I don't think he's going to have a bomb chance, but you just never know. In that bucket, Tucker Smith's going to have a good percentage there. Jason Christie's got a good percentage. Nothing crazy. Bernie Schultz has a higher percentage. Brandon Polinick, I trust Brandon, but it's still hit or miss. A lot of guys still looking at Logan Latuso's finish from the last time we were there. And so 1.9%, I'll take Bryan Schmitt on a grass fishery on a place with Florida strain. I will take Bryan Schmitt all day there. But I got Jordan Lee. I just think I haven't really picked Jordan much since he returned, but I feel like this one sets up. A lot of these are all feel, so I'm sorry. Sorry for saying I feel. But like you said, only a couple guys have fished all three events. Previously, elite wise here, it's hard to be consistent. I like Jordan's track record in the state of Florida. You know, Harris Chain last year, he's won at the Kissimmee Chain before. He's had his moments at the St. John's, and I think Okeechobee is going to find a good spot for him this week. I think he's done well on other trails at Okeechobee, and it wasn't even the way you'd expect him to fish. But I like Jordan fishing in a crowd. I also like Jordan finding something on his own and being able to maximize it. So Jordan Lee, so rock solid. My bucket C pick. Then going bucket D with Ray Hanselman. I kind of feel like the way he fished Wheeler, totally different. Hard spots, offshore, summertime. But we can kind of think this is a little bit of a closer to summertime at Okeechobee than other lakes would be right now this time of the year. They've gone through some spawn phases. There are hard spots out there, shell bars, different things. On the north end, you've got some of those areas to fish. If he's dragging a worm, if he's using electronics, sure. If he's not using electronics, just as good. I think Hanselman, he's a little bit of a dragger, a little bit of a prober on some of those offshore spots. And I feel like if somebody fished off the bank a little bit, it could be Ray Hanselman for sure.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Obviously excels with big fish just in general, so certainly like that. Bucket
And
D, I've got,
and cause Cobb's in here, Welcher's in here, Revette's in here. That's 60% of the bucket, percentage is those three guys. And so anybody else is affordable at this point.
yeah, well, I mean, that's a great thought process, but Kyle Welcher is definitely the pick in bucket D. So I appreciate your thought and consideration there,
My
but
justification,
Welcher, yeah, Kyle Welcher, we talked about a couple podcasts ago. That's my pick for Angler of the Year. In order for that to happen, needs to have a bounce back event here. After a not stellar event at the St. Johns River. So Welcher has done well at Okeechobee. I think it sets up for his style in the sense that literally everything, for the most part, you catch him on at Okeechobee. Kyle Welcher is really good at. He can also catch bedfish. He's a good flipper. Obviously, swim jig frog. We see that all the time with Kyle Welcher. So yeah, I got Welcher and D despite the percentages. I think that's the pick in that bucket.
In bucket E, I've got Kyle Patrick. I think that he was devastated with his zero on day two of the St. John's. I think motivated to not have that happen again. And he works so hard already in all aspects, on the water, marketing, all those other things, that I think that it was not a wake up call for him, but it was a moment of like, it was like a what's your welcome to the league moment. And when you do so well your rookie season, you might not have a welcome to the league moment your first year. But that second a day of the first event of your sophomore season, you're like, boy, I got to figure this out. And it seems like Bucket E is a little bit of that. If we wanted to talk about minimizing forward facing sonar, you got guys like Fouts, Fujita, McKinney, Tompkins, Williams, bunch of dudes who did really well last year, did not do well at the St. John's. Um, And so I'd put Kyle Patrick in there. He's a lot less of an electronics reliant angler. Not that those guys are exclusively that, but that's what they're known for. I know Kyle has learned both games. He's old enough and seasoned enough to have done both in his come up. But I expect a bounce back from him, sheerly off the motivation to do better. There, I can't trust Steve Kennedy. 16%, 1.6%. I don't care. Not picking him. And then Hackney, he's going to have a dominant percentage here just because we don't ever expect to see him in this bucket. And Randy Howe's down here as well, but he only has like 5%.
When it comes to the percentages, and you talked about not trusting Steve Kennedy, that's always the big thing in fantasy fishing. It's not anything
It's
against Steve.
our running joke, but there's a lot of pain behind that statement.
Yeah, he's, very like, unpredictable, I guess would be the way to put it. Like certain events you don't really expect him to, be the main factor and he comes out and, scores a top 10 and then in tournaments where you think it's just such an easy pick, he'll finish in the bottom 10. So you're just like it's hard to predict. It's not, it's just kind of his go big or go home style kind of makes it hard for fantasy fishing. However, I will say in that discussion with Bowman this morning, he is one of only two anglers that have fished all three of those events that we were talking about and has made the cut in every single one of them. So if there is some consistency for Steve Kennedy, it might be at Lake Okeechobee. And frankly, let's just be honest.
Have at it.
If we, I didn't say I was picking him. I just said that I was just saying that if you wanted to, it would be a pretty good time to take
Because
the
you
risk.
do know in our Facebook Bassmaster Fantasy group, the page that we manage, uh, every tournament. Anybody know what happened to Steve Kennedy? And it's like, did he broke down? Did he make it back? Did he just not catch a fish? And mine's like a wake up tomorrow and look for Facebook to see what he said happened. Because you just could, I'd say I think he broke down and asked her. I just didn't catch a bass. Or it's like I think he didn't catch a bass. No, my shift actuator went out, and you're like, dang it. So yeah, but go ahead.
Pretty all over the place for sure. Um, But yeah, I do think Steve Kennedy's going to catch him, and hopefully it's the same exact way he caught him 2 years ago on a frog, and we get to enjoy all those catches again. However, I'm going with Greg Hackney. Obviously, super high percentage. I don't care. Greg Hackney's in Bucket E. We're fishing at Lake Okeechobee, and I think he's going to have a bounce back. And if he doesn't, I would be thoroughly shocked. I think that frankly, I think he's pissed off about the way the last one went, to say it nicely. So I'd expect Greg Hackney to come back in a big way. And if I had to suggest, I think this will be the last time you see Greg Hackney in Bucket E for the rest of the season. So um, yeah, I don't care about the percentages. We're just going with Greg Hackney in Bucket E because he's in Bucket E. So that's my pick.